Namasristam manam Ishachiputram Atrasupam Rupam Tasya Gajauri Purim Madhurim Pushvati Radha Kundam Giridharam Oh Radhika Madhvasam Prabhu Sakatita Kripaya Sri Guru Tam Natosmi Bhave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadali Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namah Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. First of all, I offer my Sastang Dandavat Puspanjali, my heart like flowers thousands of times, at the lotus feet of my holy master, my supremely worshipable spiritual Gurudev, Asmadeva Paramarada Tuma Guru Pada Padma, Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupad, Ashtotara Satasri, Rupanuga Acharya Varya, Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj. Secondly, I offer my pranam thousands of times at the lotus feet of my Param Gurudev and to Srila Prabhupada and to all of our Sri Rupanuga Gaudiya Guru Parampara. And finally, I offer my pranam to Pujapad Sri Bhaktanta Bhagavat Maharaj, Pujapad Sri Srimati Shamarani Didi, and all the assembled Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. Today, we are most blessed to be observing the Vyasa Puja of Srila Gurudev. Srila Gurudev himself insisted that on his Vyasa Puja or on the Vyasa Puja of any great Vaishnava, first one should mention something about the glories of Vyasadeva. Because all the individual gurus, that is the Vyasti Guru. Vyasti Guru means the individual personal manifestations of the one Guru Tattva. They are all representing Srila Vyasadeva. What does that mean? Bhakti yogena manasi samyak pranihite malaya pasya purusham punam mayam chattat apashrayam. Srila Vyasadeva, though he had compiled all the Vedas, the Puranas, the Itihasas, the Vedanta Sutra, in the Itihasas there's Mahabharata and Bhagavad Gita, but he still wasn't satisfied. He was wondering, why am I not satisfied? Then his Gurudev, Sri Narad Rishi, came and explained, you have not expounded upon the glories of Braja Prem. And especially, he blessed him that he would go into a trance, and in his trance he saw all the pastimes of Sri Krishna, and then it was compiled and manifest. Actually, the Bhagavatam is eternal, but this is how the Bhagavatam manifests in this world, through this pastime. So the significance is that actually, Nigamakalpatro Galitam Palam Shukamukadamrita Drava Samyatam Pivat Bhagavatam Rasamalayam Oroho Rasikabu Vibhavukaha. The Srimad Bhagavatam is full of rasa, and it is especially the glories of Srimati Radhika. The reason that Srila Vyasadeva was not satisfied is because no one can be satisfied without satisfying Sri Krishna. And Sri Krishna was not satisfied because even though Srila Vyasadeva had manifested so many important Vedic literatures, Krishna was not satisfied because Srila Vyasadeva had not properly glorified Srimati Radharani. So when Srila Vyasadeva saw the pastimes of Sri Krishna, especially the Rasa Leela, and especially when the gopis saw the footprints of Radhika and said, Anaya radito nunam bhagavan hari ishvara yanovihaya govinda prito yamaniyadraha. Oh, this one gopi must have served him more than any of us, because he's left all of us just to be alone with her. So then, when Srila Vyasadeva manifested this, then Krishna became satisfied. Because Radhika was glorified, then Vyasadeva became satisfied. And so this is the Pratipadya Vishay. The subject matter, the glories of Radhika is the subject matter established in Srimad Bhagavatam. That is what Srila Vyasadeva realized by the mercy of his Guru. And that is what it means to worship Guru on the day of his Vyasa Puja, that he is the representative of Vyasa, manifesting the meaning of Srimad Bhagavatam, its confidential meaning, the eternal service of Srimati Radhika. This is Vyasa Puja. So in the 12th canto it says, Kasma yetena vibasi toyam atalo jnana pradipa pura tadrupena chanaradaya munaye krishnaya tadrupina yogindraya tadatmatata bhagavat rataya karunyatas tat shuddham srinvat and tat shuddham vimalam vishokam amritam satyam param dhimahi. At the end of the Srimad Bhagavatam, he said, I meditate upon that very Krishna. Which Krishna? Bale Vrindavan Bihari Lala Ki Jai. Rasa Bihari, Vrindavan Bihari, Kunj Bihari Sri Krishna. I meditate on him. Kasma Yena Vibhasitoyam. He has manifested himself in the form of his Vanmayi Murti, his sound incarnation Srimad Bhagavatam, to Lord Brahma. Then, Tadrupena Chanaradaya. This is the description of the Parampara. Narad, Vyasadeva, Shukadev Goswami, Parikshit Maharaj. But there's something very special in this. The words which are chosen here by Sutta Goswami. He's saying, Tadrupena Chanaradaya. Tadrupena means in that form. Narad was instructed and received the Srimad Bhagavatam from Lord Brahma. So Tadrupena means that when Brahmaji wanted to speak Srimad Bhagavatam to Narad, Krishna entered into him, and it was Krishna himself who spoke to Narad. Tadrupena, Krishna took the form of Brahma and instructed Narad. Tadrupena chanaradaya munaye krishnaya tadrupena. And then when Narad wanted to explain Srimad Bhagavatam to Vyasadeva, Krishna entered into him, and Krishna himself spoke it to Vyasadeva. When Vyasadeva wanted to describe, then Yogindraya Tadatmanata, like that. Each time, Tadrupina, Tadrupina, Tadrupina. When Vyasadeva wanted to teach Srimad Bhagavatam to Shukadev Goswami, Vrindavan Bihari, Krishna entered into him, and Krishna himself. Like this, in each step. And because this Srimad Bhagavatam is only revealed by Bhagavan himself, by entering into each successive guru, therefore that is called the Bhagavat Parampara. Understand? Bhagavat Parampara. This mystery of what is Bhagavat Parampara, I think it may have disappeared from the world if Srila Gurudev had not emphasized it so much. So on Srila Gurudev's Vyasa Puja Day, I had the good fortune to be with him very often. And he used to say, this is not the day that the Guru accepts the offerings and the worship and flowers and everything of his disciples. But this is the day on which Sri Guru engages all of his disciples in worshipping his parampara, all of them, up to Brahma and up to Krishna himself. So, now having discussed something about the Samasti Guru, the sum totality of Guru, Gurudev insisted that you should say something about Srila Vyasadeva and the Samasti Guru before describing the individual Guru. Otherwise, the Sangha can turn into a personality cult, right? Where it all begins and ends with one personality. But that is not the Parampara, the Bhagavat Parampara. So, I remember Once we were with Srila Gurudev in Bali, and it was his Vyasa Puja day. So we arranged the asana, and we arranged all the paraphernalia to do the puja, and everyone was ready to speak their offerings, and some people had written down their notes, what they were going to say and glorify Gurudev, and we were all making kirtan and sitting and waiting for Gurudev to come. So we thought Gurudev will come in a jolly mood and sit down, and we'll happily worship him and everything. So gradually, finally, Gurudev came. Very grave, fire in his eyes. He sat down, a devotee went to get the paraphernalia to do the puja to him. He stood up and he took the paraphernalia out of the hand, the bell out of the hand of the devotee, and pushed the devotee out of the way. And then he did puja to a picture of his own guru. He wouldn't let us worship him that day. And he did puja to his own guru. Then he sat down. So then he called devotees to speak. So he called one devotee. The devotee came up, pulled out his speech from his pocket. Gurudev said, put that away. The real meaning of Vyasa Puja, of Guru Puja, is to become a Sat Sisya. So you should not tell anything about me, you should explain what it means to offer yourself and be a Sat Sisya, a real disciple. So then everyone's speeches, everyone's plans, it was all out of the window. So then Gurudev himself spoke some verses that I pray that I will never forget. Until this day, they are with me. So one thing he said was, in Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a verse in regard to Yayati and Yadu. So there, it is said, Uttamas chintayat, Uttamas chintayam kuryat, proktakari tu madhyamaha, adamo shradaya kuryat, akartochcharitam pituhu. He's speaking about a son. So a disciple is like a son, a guru is like a father. So though it's spoken about the father and the son, Srila Gurudev used this verse to explain about the relationship between the guru and the disciple. So he said, Uttamas chintya kuryat. There are 3 levels of disciple. First one, the Uttama, the best disciple. Chintayam kuryat. He understands what's on the mind of his guru. And he does that without Gurudev even telling him what to do. Then, Proktakari to Madhyama, the middle level of disciple, he cannot understand the Manobishta, the innermost desires of Gurudev. So then the Guru tells him, you should do this. And then he carries it out with great faith. The third level, the Adam, the lowest level, Gurudev tells the disciple what to do, and the disciple, he does it. But he's kind of reluctant and hesitant and grumbling. And he doesn't have faith that by doing this, I'll actually attain the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna. He doesn't believe it. So that's the third class one. And there's a fourth category, but it's not any category of disciple. And that is Akartik Charitam Pituhu. And the son who, even being told he doesn't do it, then he's not really a son, he's just like his father's stool. So Srila Gurudev said this. And then he said he paraphrased, but this verse is from the Ramayana. Aham hi vachanad ragya patayam api bhavake vakshayayam visham tikshnam madjayam apicharnave. It comes in the context, before he made the prince. And, there was some intrigue by Kaikeyi, and she asked Dasharatha Maharaj, his father, to instead send him to the forest for 14 years. So everyone was in shock. We thought, now you're going to be coronated, But actually, you have to go to the forest and no one will see you, and you have to do austerities in the forest all this time. Because your father gave this order, he didn't want to give this order, he was bound by a promise. And this is just some politics done by Kaikeyi. So you don't have to go to the forest or anything. And then Lord Ram, he said this, Aham hi vachanat ragyo. On the words of the king, my father. And again, this father-son relationship here is used, Gurudev is using in the context of guru and disciple. Aham hi vachanat ragya. Whatever my father said, that instruction, then if he tells me to fall into a fire, I'll fall into a fire. If he tells me drink poison, then I'll drink poison. If he tells me you should plunge in the middle of the ocean and sink into the ocean, then I'll sink into the ocean. I'm ready to do it. So in this way, Srila Gurudev was speaking these verses about the mentality of Satsishya, and the actual celebration of Vyasa Puja is not to offer a flower, but to offer ourselves fully in Sri Guru Seva. So then Gurudev's mood was going deeper and deeper, and then he gave another verse. So I think these three verses really encapsulate what Gurudev's message in regard to Vyasa Puja and what is a Satsishya. And the final verse that he said was Shunyayate mahagostam garindro jagarayate vyagratundayate kundam jivatu rahitasya me. And this is a verse spoken by Srila Raghunath Das Goswami, who has served Srila Rupa Goswami outwardly and internally, fully. And when Srila Rupa Goswami left this world, even though Raghunath Das Goswami was still there, he was in Braja, he was on the bank of Radhakund, he was at Govardhan. But without Srila Rupa Goswami, all those things which were so dear to him became torturous, actually. So he said, Sunyayate maho agostam. Without my Shiksha Guru, Sri Rupa Goswami Pad, when I see Braja, only it's like a complete void, an empty, desolate wasteland. Garindro jagarayate. I used to pray, Nijanikatanivasam dehi govardhanatam, offering prayers, glorifying Govardhan. But now when I just look at Govardhan, it seems like the mouth of a python about to devour me. Vyagra tundayate kundam. And I have prayed, Tadapi Surabirada Kundame Vasrayome, so many prayers to Radhakund. But now I cannot bear to even look at Radhakund because it seems like the gaping mouth of a tiger about to eat me alive. So Srila Gurudev said, this is actually the example of the Satsishya. If a disciple will serve his Gurudev by body, mind and words completely 24 hours a day, his whole life, the degree to which he's serving, to that degree he will feel separation. And when the separation of the disciple for his Gurudev becomes inconsolable, perhaps you know there was a king in Srimad Bhagavatam, his name was Suyagya, and he was killed in battle. So when his cremation ceremony was going on, then his wife, she was weeping, and she was about to give up her life. So then at that time, one Brahmin came and pacified her. So that was actually Paramatma, the Supreme Lord himself, in that history in Srimad Bhagavatam. It's the story of Puranjan and Puranjani. So the meaning is that when the disciple serves his Gurudev fully life and soul, then when Gurudev disappears, to that degree, the feeling of separation comes to the disciple. And being completely inconsolable, the only way he can be consoled is that Krishna himself comes to that disciple and pacifies him. So that's the meaning of Yasya prasadad bhagavat prasado Yasya prasadam nakutopi. By the mercy of Gurudev, one gets the mercy of Krishna. Without the mercy of Gurudev, nothing is possible at all. So, Srila Gurudev often used to speak. He said, You have to do sadhana in such a way. What is sadhana? Kriti sadhya bhavat sadhya bhava sadhana vida. It's what you do to get bhav. So what are the symptoms that the person has attained bhav? Shanti, ravya, takala, tvam, virakti, mana, shunyata, ashakanta, samutkante, ashabanda, samutkante, namagana, sadaruchi, sakti, stad, gunakyane, iti bhavya, iti anubhava, adya, jata, bhavan, kure, jane. These are the 9 symptoms of a person who has attained bhav. So we can see if we're progressing by how much these symptoms are coming. But we can see in Srila Gurudev, all of these symptoms were there, manifested fully. First, Kshantir. Kshantir means tolerant, peaceful, undisturbed. You know, in the Vaishnava community, if some scandal pops up, then all of a sudden everyone becomes disturbed. But I have seen Srila Gurudev in very difficult situations. Everyone was freaking out. But Srila Gurudev, like a rock, completely unmoved. I remember once there was one sannyasi and he did some transgression, not only of dharma but even of illegal as well. And many devotees were upset and they came in the room to talk to Srila Gurudev. And Srila Gurudev didn't want to hear anything that they had to say. There were just a few seniors in the room. It was like a crisis management meeting. So we were sitting at Gurudev's lotus feet and devotees want to express something and say something, and Gurudev didn't want to hear. And he wasn't joining in with the condemnation of that devotee. Gurudev began to condemn the people who were in the room and who were condemning him. And Srila Gurudev just said one verse. He said, remember this. Swapada mulam bhajata priyasya. Chaktanya bhavasya hari praisha. Vikarma yaschut patitam katanchit. Dunauti sarvam ridisani vistaha. Please, take this into your heart. It will save your life. Really, if I had not been there at that time, this teaching, I would never have understood it, assimilated it, or even believed it, even if I read it 100 times in Shastra. There are just some things you have to be with a pure Vaishnav in that situation and see them living the Srimad Bhagavatam there and then you get it. Otherwise, you don't get it. So the meaning of the verse is this. If a person has given up all other activities and all other moods and dedicated his life to Krishna's service, if somehow or other, katanchit, somehow or other, it happened, that vikarma, he did some vikarma, something against dharma, then Gurudev said, Dunoti sarvam ridisanivista, you don't be concerned about this. Because Krishna is in the heart of that devotee, he does not have to do any atonement, prasthita or anything. Krishna himself will clean everything and remove everything. But for those who will point a finger and criticize, like Lord Brahma, you know, there was an incident when he chased his own daughter in the form of a deer. But immediately he felt regretful and he was completely purified. But his sons, the Maruts, they snickered, they made some comments, and then they had to take birth so many times as demons. They had to become the grandsons of Hiranyakashipu and get killed by him. Then they had to become the sons of Kamsa and be killed by Kamsa. Like this, so many births took place. So Gurudev, I saw in a situation that it was as if the devotee who had the problem, everyone thinks, oh, he's going through a test. It was a test for everybody else. Because Gurudev wasn't concerned about, Gurudev is like, Krishna will clean his heart, I'll deal with him, that's none of your business. But you have the problem right now, you have the test right now. And then he said, you should learn this verse, so padamulam bhajata priyasya. So Shanti, then abhyartha kalatvam. Srila Gurudev never wasted 1 second. Never. All the time he was completely absorbed. Even when he was very old and the doctor told him, look, you cannot work writing all the time because he's sitting and leaning over and he had like some problem. they say spondylitis. So he was manifesting this pastime of having some health problems. So he could only write for a few hours, then he had to lie down and rest. So Srila Bhaktivedanta Madhav Maharaj, our very dear god brother, an intimate servant of Gurudev, he would come when the time was over, and then he would take Gurudev's book and his little desk that he had on the bed away, and then make Gurudev lie down and cover him, and then close all the curtains, and turn out the light and go. So then after some time, there's a little bit of light shining through the gap in the curtains. What happened? Gurudev is very tricky. Turned on a little table lamp on next to the bed, grabbed his notes and was lying there and was still writing. So even when he was having the pastime of being very old and very ill and the doctor controlling him, but he could not stop seva, because he knew that all of us for years and years and for our whole life, even one word in his book may change our life or change the lives of any number of thousands of people out there in the world. Still today people are being transformed. Once it was, Gurudev used to take a massage in the mid-morning, oil massage, and then take shower, and then remember Gayatri and take his lunch. So one day I was giving Srila Gurudev a massage, and he's lying there and his lips are moving. So you'll know. And his lips are moving softly, and I'm trying to massage him. Trying to hear, well, what is he saying? Chid vilasavari pura bhubhuvasva apini kirtita pido madur papa mama tapini Balavendra nandananga raga vanga gandini maham punatu sarvada Vrindabandhu Nandini. Rupa Goswami's Yamunastakam. When he was taking massage, he would not even waste a second. He would be reciting the astakams of Rupa Goswami. And because he's just about to take bath, Gurudev said, anywhere you are in the world and you take a bath, don't think you're taking bath in the water there. He was already going to Jamuna, transcendental Jamuna, and getting ready to take bath in Jamuna. So he was singing this meditation, how beautiful Jamuna is, because she's fragrant with the kumkum from the body of Radhika and the chandan from the body of Sri Krishna that's been mixed together in their embrace. And after Rasa Leela, to cool down, they enter into the water of the Jamuna, and those cosmetics, they melt and they go into the flow, and in this way the Jamuna has become fragrant. If anyone will just take that fragrance, it will cause a spurti of that pastime of Radha and Krishna. Completely absorbed. And you tell me to stop anytime. 5 minutes, okay. So, this is a special contribution of Srila Gurudev. He often used to speak about the Vichardhara of Srila Rupa Goswami. And Vichar means conception, the thoughts, the deliberations. And Dhara means a stream. So Srila Gurudev used to say, there is a stream of Srila Rupa Goswami's profound, loving thoughts and teachings, his philosophy, his bhavs. And our duty is to be just immersed in the Vichardhara of Srila Rupa Goswami Pad. This is something that we should not forget. We don't have any other business. Srila Gurudev wanted that his Anugat Jan would follow him in being immersed in Srila Rupa Goswami Pad's Vichardhara. So, I've run out of time, so I can't tell Virakti, Manashunyata, everything. All the different symptoms of bhav that are in Gurudev. Maybe I can just touch one or two more. But I want to say, in regard to the Vichardhara of Rupa Goswami Pad, our very dear Srila Pujapad Srila Bhaktivigyan Bharati Maharaj, he said that each acharya comes into this world, and what they teach, how they speak, it is not whimsical and is not by their own desire. Just like if you have a mat in like Keshavji Gauriya Mat, and there's mat commander there, it's time for a feast. So the Mat Commander, Premananda Prabhu, used to be there and tell all the devotees, you distribute the puris, you distribute the rice, you distribute the dal, and in this way, he's directing how everyone will receive the feast. So in the same way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself is directing each acharya. And he told Srila Prabhupada, you should give Bhagavad Gita as it is and explain these things. And Srila Gurudev was told, you should reveal, you should open the Vichardhara of Srila Rupa Goswami. Once we were sitting in the birthplace of Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur in Puri. Gurudev was sitting down with just a few devotees around him. And Gurudev said, for many years I have told the glories of Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj, Ambarish Maharaj, Chitraketu Maharaj. But now I am going to tell the glories of Srila Rupa Goswami and the service of the lotus feet of Srimati Radhika. And those who will be with me in these last years, they will get it. So it was like a blessing. Sadardai Kandre Sparatuva Sachinandana. Oh, may this appear in your hearts. So Shanti Ravyata Kalatvam Virakti. Srila Gurudev was very, very virakta, completely detached from this world in an extraordinary way. One morning in Keshavji Gauriya Math, Srila Gurudev came out from his room and I was there chanting. He looked at me, he said, Prem Prayojan, never join a society. Huh? Never join a society. He said, I am not in any society. I am here doing some service as the secretary of the Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti. Because it's favorable for the service of my Gurudev. But if one day, if it were to become unfavorable for my bhajan and for my seva, then in a moment. So once a devotee asked Srila Gurudev, oh, who will be the acharya after you? And Srila Gurudev said, I am like Shukadev Goswami. When Parikshit Maharaj had to hear Harikatha, no one knew where he came from. He just appeared there in the moment when he was needed. And he spoke Srimad Bhagavatam. And after he spoke, he got up and he disappeared. And no one knows where he went. He said, so even though I appear to be an acharya of this society, actually, I am just appearing. I am speaking Harikatha. And I will disappear. Because all the devotees were coming to him with big documents of a plan, how to organize the whole society and all the rules and regulations and the bylaws and the sub-laws and Article A, B, C, D, E and everything. And Gurudev said, don't put too much into this. Be immersed in the Vichardhara of Rupa Goswami. So Gurudev said, do you think that when Shukadeva Goswami was speaking the Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj and 88,000 rishis, that he was thinking, after me, who's going to be the next acharya? He said, no, he said, I'm just coming and I'm going. And I never think these things. So this is called virakta. Virakta. No attachment to this world. So, Shantiravyakta Kadam, virakta manashunyata. Manashunyata means having no ego at all. Once I was in Rupa Sanatana Gaudiya Math and one scholar came from somewhere in Scandinavia and he was writing a PhD thesis about gurus and he'd been all over the world interviewing different gurus and he came there and he asked me, can you arrange that I can interview your Gurudev? So I said, sure, yeah, just come. So then I brought him to and Gurudev was sitting on a chair in front of Shamrani's painting of Seva Kunj where it's the Radha Krishna are installed and worshipped along with the manjaris, just exactly there. And a few devotees were there, and I brought this scholar, and he told me, I said, what are your questions? I said, okay, good. Because these questions were so bold, no disciple would ask such questions. So, then he came and he sat down, and he said, his first question was, so, when did you decide to become a guru? When did you just, pick that career path? Gurudev said, I am not a guru. Then he said, but what about these disciples here? Gurudev said, they are not my disciples. They are my friends. And together we're making an atmosphere which is favorable for Braj Bhajan. So then he said, then that person said, you have a guru. Yes, yes, yes. How do you know that your guru is bona fide? Would anyone here ask Gurudev that question? It's like it can't even enter into our intelligence anywhere. So it was interesting to see an outsider come because it brought out, it revealed, it caused Gurudev to manifest his heart in ways that we would not have been able to witness. So then Gurudev said, you cannot know, but if you'll take your life in your hands and offer it to your Gurudev and serve for 60 years like I have done, he said, now I can realize something. How bona fide is my Gurudev?
2 more minutes.
Then, the next question. Then he said, so then, and now after you go to Goloka Vrindavan, then who will be he asked this question. This was years, that other time was just when Gurudev was about to leave it. But this was some years earlier. He said, when you go to Goloka Vrindavan, then who will be the next Acharya? Gurudev didn't hear even the second part of the question. He became struck by the first part of the question. When you go to Goloka Vrindavan, that's what just went in. And Gurudev said, at the end of my life, I will not go to Goloka Vrindavan. But if I am fortunate, in my next life, I may be a blade of grass on the bank of Jamuna on the Vrindavan Parikrama Marg, so that when all the Vaishnavas are doing Vrindavan Parikrama, I can get their foot dust. So these are the symptoms of bhav. Shanti ravyat kalatvam virakti mana sunyata. No ego at all.
1 more minute, please.
Okay. That's best time. Living with Srila Gurudev in Keshapji Gaudiya Math, there were sometimes some spontaneous things. Sometimes he would just come out in the morning and say, I'm going to Yavat. And then I would just get in a car with him and Madhav Maharaj and just drive to Yavat, Govardhan or somewhere like that, Radhakund. So one time we went to Radhakund. So we were just walking around Radhakund and Gurudev was looking at some buildings and he had a desire, he wanted to make an ashram at Radhakund. Oh, that reminds me of just one, let me just digress just for 1 second. One day, Gurudev called me into his room and he said, Prem Prayojan, I'm going to make a bhajan kuti for you in Radhakund. And you can go there, you can sit there and just chant continuously. So I looked at Gurudev's face and I thought, he's testing me. So I said, and what will be the result of that? Then Gurudev went, 0. He said, how much translation have you done today? He said, it was my service to translate his books like Chaitanya Dharma and Gita Govinda and Brahma Samhita. How much translation have you done today? I said, I did a couple of hours. He said, yes, I know you. You have been sitting there with your mala. Hare Krishna, Hare. And then Gurudev did a pretty good impression of me. He took his mala and he'd been speaking beautiful verses of the Bhakti Rasayan. And it really, really affected me. And he used to say, you should chant and remember this. So he said, you're taking your mala and sitting. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Koi mastriya vanachari vyabhajara dushta krishne kotra. And he exactly impersonated me, how I am in a room locked behind a door. How he knew, anyone can guess. So he started reciting verses that I was meditating on. And he said, you are doing this, I know you've done for 6 hours. So I don't want you to chant so much. You should do more service. Increase you can chant, but do more translation service. In this stage, this will be more helpful for you. You should do. So, where was it? Oh yeah, we are going to Radhakund with just reminded me about the Bhajan Kutir in Radhakund. After Gurudev disappeared. So we were walking around Radhakund and Gurudev was looking for a place, and then we checked out one building, and then we came in the Sangam in the middle of Shamakund and Radhakund. So when we were there, you know what it's like there, all the Brahmanas come and they're, give me money. And Gurudev was giving, he'd become prepared with a big wad of brand new rupees, like from the bank, still like fascinating. And Gurudev was handing out money to all the Brahmanas, like this. And as he was walking, and he was about to go up the stairs, one Brahmana came to him, and Gurudev was trying to give him money, and he said, no. He said, Maharaj, can you please accept me as your disciple? And then Gurudev stopped, and he said, my Acharya, Prayojan Acharya, Prayojan Tattvacharya, that is Raghunath Das Goswami, he has said in the first verse of Manashiksha, Guru, Goste, Gostale Su, Sujane Bu Suragane. Oh my dear mind, please give up all duplicity and develop intense, unprecedented rati, attachment for Brajamandal, for your Gurudev first, then for Brajamandal, then for the eternal Brijbasis in their Braj and their Sadak forms in Gaura Lila, and have intense love for the Vaishnavas of other Sampradayas. We see how the Pujari from the Nimbarka Sampradaya came, was inspired by Radharani to come to him. And then he says, and Bhusura, and have intense loves for the Brahmanas of the Dham. So Gurudev said, you are a Brahman of the Dham, not only of the Dham, of Radhakund no less. So you are worshipable for me. How can I be your Guru? So I saw, to my limited capacity, someone who is actually living the bhavs of Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. It's easy to read the book, but someone who's living actually the embodiment. It was as if Raghunath Das Goswami himself was standing there. Right? And then that Brahmin began to cry. And seeing him crying, then Gurudev, he said, all right, you come and see me tomorrow. And I have to finish now. Srila Gurudev ki jai.
I just have one question. When are you coming back?
I believe on the 8th and the 9th, which is the disappearance day. Sorry?
9th and 10th.
Sorry, 9th and 10th. I'm going to North Carolina now to make a festival. The festival will continue. It is Nam Tattva Festival on the glories of the Holy Name. And then immediately after that, I'm coming back here. And we'll have one program at Jagadish's house. I think that's Madhvacharya's disappearance day. And one program at the Bhajan Kutir of Shamarani. That is Ramanujacharya's disappearance day. And yes, we're inviting everyone, as Srila Gurudev used to do, please come to Navadip Dham for Navadip Dham Parikrama from the 3rd of March to the 10th of March, and then Vrindavan Parikrama from the 12th to the 24th. Hare Krishna.